You've probably had a weird thought before, something like, what if none of this is real? What if everything I remember is just something my mind invented? Most of us get that thought, blink it away, and go back to scrolling. But there's one idea, one beautifully deranged, cosmically inconvenient idea that refuses to be shrugged off. A thought so unsettling that even physicists glance at it and whisper, "Please, not this again." Today we're talking about the Boltzmann Brain. And no, it's not the name of a metal band, although it absolutely should be.
The clock of judgment is ticking away.
It's the idea that you, yes, you, watching this video, might be nothing more than a self-aware brain floating in a void, hallucinating your entire life. And here's the best part. According to some interpretations of physics, that might actually be more likely than you being a real human living in a real universe. So, buckle up. We're about to walk straight into one of the strangest philosophical ideas in history, and by the end, you might wish you hadn't heard it at all. Let's start at the beginning. You're living in a universe that loves chaos, entropy. The universe's obsession with disorder always increases. Always. Your room gets messy, ice cubes melt, hot coffee cools down, systems naturally fall apart, they never spontaneously organize themselves into something beautiful, meaningful, or structured, unless you put energy into them. But here's the twist. In the deepest mathematics of physics, the rules say that while things tend toward disorder, they don't have to every single time. Given enough time, like stupid amounts of time, any random fluctuation can occur. Order can pop out of chaos by pure accident. Not because it's likely, but because if you wait trillions of trillions of trillions of years, even the impossible becomes inevitable. Imagine rolling a 20-sided die. You might get 120, maybe even 2 in a row. But if you rolled that die for unimaginable lengths of time, eventually even the craziest outcome would pop up, and this is where things get weird. Physicist Ludwig Boltzmann looked at this idea back in the 19th century and used it in a different way. He suggested that our small, orderly patch of the universe, the part we can actually see, it might be a rare fluctuation of order inside a much bigger, mostly chaotic cosmos. In that picture, most of reality is just boring, featureless chaos. But every now and then, by pure chance, a little island of structure appears, like our cosmic neighborhood with its galaxies, stars, and planets. But here's where the nightmare begins, because the math suggests something deeply unsettling. If you're going to get order from chaos by pure chance, the simplest possible fluctuation is far more likely to happen than a huge, complicated one. In other words, it's incredibly unlikely for an entire universe to form by accident, but it's way more likely for a single galaxy to form by accident, and even more likely for a single planet to form by accident, and even more likely for just one person's brain to form by accident, floating in the void, fully conscious for a moment, hallucinating an entire lifetime. That's a Boltzmann brain. Not born, not raised, not shaped by experience, just a random lump of particles that accidentally assembles into a functioning human brain with a lifetime of fake memories. Your first kiss? Made up. Your childhood bedroom? Fabricated. Your deepest heartbreak? Never happened. Your entire identity? A glitch. Everything you remember is just a movie your neurons created in the millisecond before they dissolve back into chaos. Pause for a second. Let that sink in. This theory isn't saying you might feel unreal. It's saying you might be unreal. If random fluctuations can happen in a long-lasting, mostly empty universe, then Boltzmann brains should be far more common than whole universes like ours. In fact, the number of Boltzmann brains would be so astronomically huge that, statistically, you should assume you're one of them. Because from a purely mathematical standpoint, it's far more likely that a fleeting brain with false memories popped into existence than that an entire cosmos evolved over 13.8 billion years just to eventually produce you. And the moment you think that, your stomach drops, because the universe suddenly becomes a funhouse mirror. Every assumption about reality becomes shaky. Every certainty you anchor your life to starts to wobble. But before you panic, let's slow down, Because this idea, strange as it sounds, isn't meant to break your brain. It's meant to reveal something about how we understand the universe. And physics has a few counters to this nightmare. Counter-argument number 1, if you were a Boltzmann brain, the universe around you shouldn't look like this. A fluctuation big enough to create an entire galaxy-filled cosmos is unbelievably less likely than one that produces just a single conscious brain. So if you truly were a random fluctuation, you wouldn't be seeing stars, planets, physics textbooks, YouTube videos, and a whole rich cosmic history. You'd expect the absolute minimum, a brain and chaos. But instead you find yourself inside a gigantic structured universe with rules, patterns, and billions of years of visible history. That's strongly at odds with what a typical Boltzmann brain would wake up into. Counterargument number 2, a universe that produces Boltzmann brains is fundamentally unstable, and unstable universes probably can't exist long enough to make them. Modern cosmology suggests the universe is expanding faster and faster. That expansion leads to empty space getting colder and quieter over time. In that kind of universe, the chance of random organized structures popping out of the void becomes effectively zero. So the universe might not even allow Boltzmann brains in the first place. Counterargument number 3, if a theory predicts that random floating hallucination brains outnumber real observers, the theory is probably flawed, because something feels off, right? If a model says you are more likely a cosmic accident than a real human, maybe the model, not you, is the problem. Physicists take that seriously. This thought experiment forces cosmology to refine its theories. A good model of the universe should predict observers like us, humans living in galaxies on planets with stable physical laws, not lone brains drifting in void space. But here's the real twist. Even if Boltzmann brains don't literally exist, the idea is still terrifyingly important because it forces us to confront a question most people never think about. What does it actually mean to trust your own mind? Your memories feel real. Your experiences feel real. The world feels consistent. But everything you experience comes through the filter of your brain. If your brain is your only tool for interpreting reality, how do you prove the brain itself wasn't fabricated 5 seconds ago? You can't. Not perfectly anyway. That's the unsettling beauty of the Boltzmann brain paradox. Not because it's true, but because it exposes the fragile assumptions underneath our sense of certainty. It's a cosmic version of déjà vu, existential dread, and imposter syndrome mixed into one, a voice whispering, "What if none of this is what you think it is?" But here's where I want you to breathe, because this idea, this bizarre, nightmarish possibility, isn't meant to convince you that your life is fake. It's meant to show you how easy it is for our minds to cling to neat explanations, even if they don't make sense. Physicists don't take Boltzmann brains seriously because they think it's real. They take it seriously because if your cosmological theory leads to conclusions that absurd, then something about your theory needs fixing. It's a stress test for the universe, a philosophical earthquake that forces us to rebuild our assumptions with stronger foundations. And the current foundations, based on inflation, quantum field theory, thermodynamics, and cosmology, strongly suggest you're not a brain that randomly popped into existence for a split second. You're part of a universe that has structure, laws, patterns, a history, an arrow of time, a process of evolution that gradually built stars, planets, life, and eventually, somehow, consciousness. You're not a glitch. You're a participant. But the question still lingers, doesn't it? Because even if Boltzmann brains aren't physically real, the philosophical problem remains. How do you know that your memories reflect reality? How do you prove your world isn't illusory? How certain can you be about anything at all? And for some people, that's terrifying. But for others, it's liberating, because once you accept that reality might be far stranger than your senses can grasp, you loosen your grip on certainty. You stop pretending you have all the answers. You start living with curiosity instead of fear. Maybe the universe is orderly. Maybe it's chaotic. Maybe we'll never fully understand it. But you're here. You're conscious. You're experiencing something, and that something is meaningful, even if the cosmic math behind it is bizarre. At the end of the day, The Boltzmann Brain paradox doesn't tell you you're fake. It tells you the universe is deeper, stranger, and more mysterious than you ever imagined. And your awareness of that mystery is part of what makes you real. So let me leave you with one final question. The same question physicists ask themselves when this paradox comes up. If reality gave you a consciousness capable of questioning itself, what are the odds that was an accident? Let me know in the comments, assuming, of course, that you exist long enough to type it.